Good morning, everyone. The time is now 9 a.m. I'd like to call the special called meeting to order on the matter of the FY26 millage rate. Would you please join me for a moment of silence? And now the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance. Thank you all for being here today as we host the second of 3 public hearings on the proposed millage rate for the fiscal year 2026. The primary purpose of this hearing is to discuss the proposed millage rate for the upcoming school year, which is a key factor in determining the school district's portion of our county's property tax collections. Today's discussion is an opportunity for you to learn more about this board's proposed millage rate and provide comment and feedback. To get us started, Dr. Bradley will deliver opening remarks. Next, our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Erica Robinson, will provide a brief presentation that includes proposed millage rate options and additional contextual information. After the presentation, we will open the floor for public comments. We ask that each speaker come to the podium when his or her name is called. To ensure everyone has a chance to participate, public comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. While we welcome your input, please note that the dialogue with board members will not be encouraged as necessary. The board will discuss relevant matters among themselves. To ensure a respectful and productive hearing, we ask that all participants adhere to the following guidelines. Please wait to be recognized before speaking. Please keep comments concise and relevant to the topic. Please refrain from personal attacks or offensive language. And finally, please maintain a respectful tone. Again, we appreciate your attendance and look forward to hearing from you this morning. Now we'll turn it over to Dr. Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm recommending that this board adopt a decrease to the district's millage rate, which is currently set at 15.75 mills. Please know that I've given significant thought to this recommendation, and it is informed largely by the expressed concerns and interests of our community, most of whom have been voiced by our seniors. Board, there is no doubting that matters of property assessments and school taxes have dominated public discourse in recent months, made even more prominent by legislation that emerged from the state's General Assembly during the 2024 legislative session. Nonetheless, given the annual task of setting a millage rate and deliberating prior to, allow me to respectfully highlight a few things. It should first be stressed that this board has lowered the millage rate for 5 of the past 6 years. When the rate was lowered to 16 mills in 2023, that number represented a 30-year low. Additionally, the board's action of lowering the rate from 16 to 15.75 just last year represented yet another 30-year low. And this is not insignificant, although inconceivable for some, given the financial constraints that school districts are currently confronted with. Arguably, these reductions have not served the best interests of our students or our district at large. After all, our district operations, academic programs, and support services run on only 12% of the district's budget. That 12% includes textbooks and supplies, complementary resources and materials, and various instructional tools necessary to enhance the learning experience for our students. Yet in that vein, it is worth noting that this board has consistently determined annual millage rates according to and in consideration of the greater interest of our community, which is not only telling, but connected to a larger philosophical point, which is that the school district is not separate from the community that we serve. It is an extension of it. But even while we discuss the appropriate millage rate for the coming year, we must consider the district's long-term financial outlook. To be clear, a future increase to the millage rate is virtually inevitable. This is not to say that we won't explore additional means of reducing cost and demonstrating continued fiscal discipline, but the circumstance of increased operating cost, fixed obligations, and decreased revenues requires the need to generate more resources. This is, in fact, the state of play of our district and many others who are already dealing with the pains of budget shortfalls and shifting approaches to their work. So, again, while we can most certainly absorb a millage rate reduction for the current year, perhaps not in years to come. Madam Chair, at this time I'd like to invite Chief Financial Officer Ms. Erica Robinson to the podium to deliver the FY26 millage rate presentation. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This morning, I will share a brief presentation on the proposed millage rate. Following the presentation, I will turn it back over to Board Chair Coggin for board member discussion. Lastly, Ms. Coggin will open the hearing for public comments. Today's hearing serves several key purposes. First and foremost, this hearing is a legal requirement. According to the Official Code of Georgia, annotated 48-5-32, each levying authority must publish a current tax digest and a 5-year history of levy in the local newspaper and on the district's website. Additionally, OCGA 48-5-32.1 mandates that if the proposed millage rate exceeds the rollback rate, we must advertise this fact and hold 3 public hearings, of which today's meeting is a part. These steps are essential to ensure legal compliance and to keep the public informed. Secondly, this hearing underscores our commitment to public transparency and accountability. We are here to present millage rate options, provide a detailed explanation of their implications, and openly discuss how it will affect our community. Lastly, this hearing is an opportunity for community engagement. We value your opinions and insights, and we want to hear from you. Your input helps us make informed decisions that reflect the needs and desires of our community. Before we move into the informational segment of the presentation, I would like to take a moment to share a few key terms that will be commonly referenced throughout this hearing. The first term is assessed value. The assessed value of a property is calculated at 40% of its fair market value. This is the value upon which property taxes are based, minus any applicable exemptions that might reduce the taxable amount. The second term is tax digest. The tax digest is the total value of all taxable properties within the county. It serves as the basis for calculating the total revenue that can be generated from property taxes. The third term is millage rate. The millage rate is the tax rate used to determine the amount of property tax owed by property owners. It is expressed in mills, where 1 mill represents $1 of tax for every $1,000 of assessed property value. For example, if the millage rate is 16 mills, this means that a property owner would pay $16 in taxes for every $1,000 of assessed property value. The final term is rollback rate. The rollback rate is the tax rate that would generate the same amount of revenue as the previous year, considering the current year's total taxable property value. It is essentially a baseline rate that ensures consistency in revenue without increasing the tax burden on property owners. For example, the rollback rate for Newton County Schools is currently 14.840 mills. To help everyone understand how the millage rate is set and what steps are involved, please allow me to provide an overview of the entire process, detailing the roles and responsibilities of the key entities involved. The Newton County Board of Tax Assessors plays a crucial role in determining the value of properties within the county. Their responsibilities include setting property values based on the current market trends. This involves assessing the fair market value of each property to ensure that the taxes are levied equitably. Additionally, the Newton County Board of Tax Assessors is responsible for mailing assessments to property owners, providing them with information about their property's assessed value and any applicable exemptions, and preparing the property digest, which is a comprehensive record of all taxable properties and their assessed values. This digest is then delivered to the levying authorities within the county for further action. Newton County Schools have several important responsibilities in the millage rate process. The first is publishing the current tax digest and the 5-year history of levy. This publication provides transparency by showing the taxable values and tax rates over the past 5 years, helping the public understand trends and changes in property taxation. The second is issuing a press release to announce the intent to increase taxes. This is an essential step for keeping the community informed and ensuring that taxpayers are aware of proposed changes to the tax rate. Additionally, the district must advertise and hold 3 public hearings on the millage rate. These hearings are opportunities for community members to learn about the proposed rate and provide feedback. Finally, the Board of Education must set the millage rate for ad valorem property tax. The millage rate is determined based on the financial needs of the school district and the total taxable property value within the county. The Newton County Tax Commissioner is also responsible for several critical tasks in the property tax process. The Tax Commissioner must produce the official digest and complete all submissions to the Georgia Department of Revenue. This includes ensuring that all property values and tax rates are correctly recorded and reported to the state. The Tax Commissioner is also responsible for facilitating property tax billing and collection. This involves generating tax bills for property owners based on the set millage rate and ensuring that taxes are collected efficiently and accurately. To provide a clear understanding of how the Property Tax Digest has evolved over the years, I would like to review the history of our tax digest, millage rate, gross taxes, and the annual differences from the previous year. This data reflects the changes and trends that have shaped our current financial landscape. The historical data traces back to fiscal year 2009, during which we initially experienced a steady decline in the tax digest and revenue due to the economic recession and the collapse of the housing market. As a result, the millage rate was set at the statutory maximum of 20 mills. Despite this rate, revenue over a 5-year span dropped by over $16 million. By fiscal year 2015, the tax digest started to show signs of recovery, reflecting a gradual rebound from the economic downturn. Nevertheless, the millage rate remained at 20 mills because the tax digest and revenue had not yet returned to pre-recession levels. Fiscal year 2020 marks the beginning of another significant period affecting the tax digest. The COVID-19 pandemic led to a substantial increase in home values, which in turn caused significant growth in the tax digest. As a result, the Board of Education has decreased the millage rate in 5 of the last 6 years. For fiscal year 2026, the tax digest stands at $6.1 billion. A millage rate of 15.750 is expected to generate approximately $96.6 million in gross revenue, which is a $5.8 million more than the gross revenue generated in fiscal year 2025. Let us now review the history of the millage rate. This historical data provides insight into how the millage rate has evolved in response to various economic conditions. Starting in fiscal year 2001, the millage rate was set at a total of 18.440 mills, with 17.210 mills allocated for maintenance and operations and 1.230 mills for bond. Over the following years, we observed a gradual reduction in the bond rate, which resulted in a stable total millage rate ranging from 18.210 to 19.210 mills. The total millage rate remained stable until fiscal year 2011, when the economic recession and housing market collapse posed significant financial challenges. During this challenging period, the M&O millage rate was increased to 20 mills, which is a statutory maximum, to counteract declining property values and ensure adequate revenue to support public education. This adjustment was necessary to maintain essential services despite the economic downturn. In fiscal year 2016, the Board of Education reduced the bond millage rate to 0, a strategic move aimed at reducing the overall tax burden for property owners. Beginning in fiscal year 2020, the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic led to a considerable surge in property values. In response, the Board of Education has reduced the millage rate in 5 of the past 6 years from the statutory maximum of 20 mills to a quarter-century low of 15.750 mills in an effort to offset the growth in the tax digest and responsibly manage the fiscal impact on taxpayers. For fiscal year 2026, the proposed millage rate remains unchanged at 15.750 mills. This rate is designed to balance fiscal responsibility with economic realities, ensuring sustainable funding for public education while supporting the community's needs. Board, having reviewed the digest and millage rate history, I would now like to walk you through how various millage rate scenarios would affect our projected tax revenue for fiscal year 2026. This chart compares the projected revenue outcomes across a range of potential millage rates using the most recent tax digest of approximately $6.1 billion. At the top, you will see the fiscal year 2026 budget projection based on a digest of just over $6 billion and a millage rate of 15.750. This scenario yields a net tax revenue of approximately $91.5 million, which was used as the baseline for building the fiscal year 2026 budget. If we maintain the same 15.750 millage rate, but apply it to the updated digest, the district would generate about $93.3 million in net tax revenue, an increase of roughly $1.8 million compared to the budget projection. Should the board choose to slightly reduce the rate, a rate of 15.70 would generate an increase of $1.5 million. A rate of 15.650 would produce an increase of $1.2 million. And a rate of 15.6 would still result in a modest increase of just over $900,000. Following the board's request, the following scenarios were included. A rate of 15.550, which would increase revenue by about $609,000. A rate of 15.50, which would increase revenue by roughly $313,000, and a rate of 15.448, which is the closest to a zero change in revenue, resulting in an increase of only about $5,000 compared to the budget projection. If the rate were lowered further to 15.450, the increase would be minimal, approximately $7,000. However, if the rollback rate of 14.840 were adopted, the district would actually lose revenue, approximately $3.6 million less than the amount projected in the fiscal year 2026 budget. This analysis highlights the trade-offs between maintaining a competitive millage rate and ensuring we have the necessary revenue to sustain operations, support instruction, and prepare for any future economic uncertainties. Now that we've reviewed the implications of various millage rate scenarios, it is important to place those numbers in the broader context of our overall funding structure. Our school system relies on a blend of state and local revenues to operate effectively. Specifically, 58% of our budget revenues come from the state, while the remaining 42% is sourced locally. This local portion primarily comes from property tax revenue, which is a critical component of our financial planning and stability. As our community grows, the importance of these locally generated funds becomes even greater, ensuring we meet the needs of our student population and maintain high-quality educational services. When we built the budget for fiscal year 2026, we had to make projections based on anticipated growth in the property tax digest. We conservatively estimated a growth of 6%. However, the actual growth in the digest came in slightly higher than expected at 8%. This higher digest means we'll see more revenue than anticipated. As previously mentioned, keeping the millage rate at 15.750 would bring in about $1.8 million more than projected, which would help reduce the amount we need to draw from our reserves in fiscal year 2026. The local 5 mil share is a mandated contribution from local property tax revenues to support the Quality Basic Education program, which is Georgia's primary method for funding public schools. The local 5 mil share requires every school district to levy at least 5 mills in property tax. This contribution is vital as it helps ensure that all districts, regardless of their wealth, are investing a minimum level of local funds towards education. The property tax digest directly influences the local 5 mil share contribution. As the digest grows, so does the contribution to the local 5 mil share. Each year, this contribution is calculated based on the property tax digest from the previous 2 years. Consequently, Newton County Schools can anticipate an increase in the local 5 mil share contribution through fiscal year 2028. As we know, an increase in the local 5 mil share contribution leads to a corresponding reduction in state funding. Over the next 3 years, this reduction in state funding is estimated to total $9.2 million, which is equivalent to 1.51 mills. Now I'd like to illustrate the direct impact of various millage rates on taxpayers, first focusing on homestead properties. Let's consider a homestead property with an average home value of $325,000. For property tax purposes, homes are assessed at 40% of their market value. In this case, that means the assessed value is $130,000. After applying a homestead exemption of $4,000, the total taxable value of the property is $126,000. Now let's look at how different millage rates affect the amount of school taxes paid. At the current millage rate of 15.750, a homeowner with this property would pay $1,985 in school taxes. At a slightly lower millage rate of 15.7, the school portion of the tax bill would decrease to $1,978. If the rate were reduced to 15.5, the amount would decrease to $1,953. At 15.448 mills, the amount drops further to $1,946. If the board were to adopt the rollback rate of 14.840, the homeowner's school tax will be $1,870. Other rates are shown here on the slide for your reference, with each representing a slightly different balance between providing tax relief and generating the revenue needed to sustain operations and support students. For a non-homestead property valued at $300,000, the taxable value is $120,000, which represents 40% of the home's market value. Under the current millage rate of 15.750, the property taxes would amount to $1,890. At a slightly lower millage rate of 15.7, the school portion of the tax bill would decrease to $1,884. If the rate were reduced to 15.5, the amount would decrease to $1,860. At 15.448, the amount drops further to $1,854. If the rollback rate of 14.840 is adopted, the tax bill for this property will be $1,781. These sample home comparisons for homestead and non-homestead properties demonstrate how small shifts in the millage rate create measurable changes in what taxpayers owe, which is an important consideration when weighing community impact alongside district needs. This morning, we have reviewed the legal requirements, historical trends, and financial implications, as well as the direct effect on taxpayers. As we move forward, I want to outline the next steps in the millage rate process. Our next and final public hearing will take place on August 12th at the Board of Education Administrative Offices at 5 p.m. Following the final hearing, the board will convene for its regular work session meeting at 7 p.m. During this meeting, the board will formally adopt the millage rate for fiscal year 2026. This decision will determine the school property tax rate for our community and the funding available for essential services. Thank you all for your attendance at today's hearing. Your involvement throughout this process is crucial. We are committed to transparency and accountability, and we value your input as we make these important decisions. Madam Chair, this concludes all that I have prepared. I turn it back over to you, but will remain available for any questions or board discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Robinson or any discussion? None. All right. Well, if there is none, and I don't believe we have anybody signed up for public participation. So with that said, we need a motion to go out of session, to adjourn until this afternoon at 5 p.m., excuse me. Yesterday was a long day, I'm sorry. 5 p.m. this afternoon. So do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Johnson, Mr. Anderson, Bailey, a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you.